Phil.
I'm here. I'm still here, David. You keep looking as if you're expecting someone else.
Hope springs eternal. No, but truthfully, hope springs eternal in that we've always wanted this guest on Naked Lunch.
You've been teasing me with him for how many years now?
Well, let's just talk about the day, because it's not the longest of interviews, but it's very special. And the context is interesting because this happened on a Friday in which Phil, at the last minute, was, as he's wont to do, was called in to play a role on a very hot TV show, a great series, acting, not as Phil Rosenthal. I was working on a big event show, and that was the day that Ringo invited us to join Ringo and T-Bone for Naked Lunch.
Pretty amazing. So I actually told this big TV show that this was happening and asking when my call time was. The call time was maybe 20 minutes before we were supposed to be with Ringo, which of course would not have been enough time. So I told them, listen, I know I just have a couple of pages in this show, but I have an opportunity to interview Ringo Starr. And they said, let us see what we can do. Yeah.
By the way, if it was the Hollies, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Dave Clark 5, definitely not.
So I want to give everyone some advice here. When you have to get out of something or move something, you use a Beatle.
Exactly. And I'm so happy that it happened. I'm so glad that you could do that. It would have been not as meaningful at all without you, even though, as you'll hear in this episode, I introduced Phil to Ringo and actually with Ray 25 years ago.
That's right.
Ringo I met 38 years ago. It's crazy. And so just all this is happening. Phil is literally like moving heaven and earth to a production schedule of a major hit hot show. I was doing this major event called the Breakthrough Prize. And I literally was, when they told me the time, I'm like, if I leave the rehearsal with the billionaires and I don't hit too much traffic going across town, I can get back for the rehearsal with James Corden, who's our wonderful host.
Right.
It all worked out. But I want you to know that when you listen to the episode, we're going to give you every second of what happened. And I think at one point in the hotel suite we were in, the phone rang. So I think you're going to hear that. So
it's a fascinating interview. And then at one point, something happens. Ringo starts drumming on the table with his hands, a song that you all know.
He does too.
And
actually,
when that happens, just know that inside, all I could think to myself was, a Beatle is playing a Beatles song in front of me. It was insane. I recommend this experience if you can get a Beatle in a room with you.
So out today, the episode is coming out the day that the new Ringo album with great collaboration with T-Bone Burnett,
and it's really
a great friend of yours.
Well, we love T-Bone, yeah, but Ringo is he's such a warm and funny and loving. I mean, Peace and Love is the brand, and he walks the walk. He's really charming and great. I only wish that he wasn't the busiest man in the world and that we could have spent more time with him. But here's a guy, well, how old is he now? 80? 81?
He'd rather not say.
He'd rather not say, but we can do the math. We know we know when he came on the scene, right? And he's
timeless.
But he is also so spry and so full of energy. Peace and love might be a good way to live, it turns out.
When I met him 38 years ago, it's like that Bob Dylan lyric. I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now. He had just come out of rehab, cleaning himself up so that he could go back on the road in the All-Star Band, which he's going back out this year, this summer. And I will say that he not only has he not lost a beat, I mean, he's on the greatest creative role with these two records with T-Bone that veer into country and Americana, but it's so true.
He's staying creatively active.
He sounds better than ever. It's just remarkable.
I've always loved him. I mean, you get to meet someone you've loved your entire life. And it's pretty fantastic. So let's get by with a little help from our friend Ringo.
Let's spill the beans, chew the fat, food for thought, jokes on tap. Talking with our mouths full, having fun. A piece of cake and humble pie, serving up a slice of life. Leave the dressing on the side, it's naked lunch. Clothing optional.
First of all, I realized we are so honored and so thrilled, especially for this album that we love so much, Long, Long Road. But this is, when we walked in today, we're looking at a beautiful picture in the lobby, and it's a picture of Cassius Clay, I believe, at the time, with, the Fab Four.
With the four.
And amazing.
Knocking you all four out with one punch.
Yeah.
And which
You
is
could feel it.
great
Well,
photo.
Yeah, but when we met him, he was, the vibe was like so strong. It's like he could hit you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was really a weird feeling.
Well, his fist is also as big as your head.
Joking, and we fell on the floor.
Yeah, yeah.
pretending- he didn't hit us, but it
Yeah.
was yeah. I bumped into him several times after that. It was great. We all said hello. Yeah.
Well, we realized that the day I introduced you to Phil, it was 25 years ago at an event, the Tribute to Heroes at the telethon after 9/11. And Ali was in the room at the same time. So you're very connected. You're the greatest.
Yeah.
I am the greatest, right?
Yeah. You're the best. You're the best. I'm the greatest.
And speaking of which, the amazing thing is this album, the last two records, but I think especially this one, I think you've never been greater. I think this is just like, and I know you feel.
Well, I've never been greater for sure.
Anyway, it worked. Two guys got together for all the good reasons. And at the beginning, I didn't have a thought in mind. We actually came to this hotel because Olivia Harrison was reading from a book of poets to George. I was there, 50 people were here. He was one of them. I bumped into him many times. So I went, hey, how you doing? He said, fine, how you doing? What are you doing? Oh, I'm making EPs. And if you've got a track, why don't you send it to me? And then 3 days later, the track came and I put it on. It was a country track. I had never thought, you know what I mean? How mad you can be sometimes. I'd never thought, because I'm doing rock pop EPs through the pandemic. And I thought, I love country music. And then I did put a couple of more tracks around it. And then we got to talking, and the great line for me, and I always tell everybody, we're talking, and somehow we're talking about songs, and I said to him, well, how many songs have you got? And he goes, 9.
Oh.
He had them with him, He had them in his pocket, and that gave me the courage to say, well, would you produce the album? And he said, yeah, and that's how we got together.
It's a pretty good marriage.
Yeah, no, it works great. I love it,
And it seems like the fulfillment of a lot of dreams in a way, because, like, for instance, the fact that the band is at least unofficially or officially known as the Texans. Am I right that when you were like a teenager, you thought of becoming a Texan?
Ask you? Oh yeah, no. Because of blues player Lightning Hopkins was my hero. Besides Hank Williams and the Country Bunch, I also had the blues. I was a teenager getting into music, listening. Well, Johnny Ray, Frankie Lane, that far back. So it just like I was growing up, and the records. Oh, well, listen to that, and there's that.
Was it
that's
on the
how
radio?
I got into it.
Was it on the radio in Liverpool? Could you hear that music on the radio then?
No, what we really heard was on Sunday at 4:00 from Luxembourg, who had the biggest antenna, it seemed.
Yeah.
Who was the guy who put like the Motown theaters with 20 people?
I don't know.
Who? No. I forget his name now, but I do that a lot lately.
Not Barry Gordy.
No. What?
Thinking of the Ronnie Spector and the.
No, it was before that. He was a DJ, and then he had
Dick Clark's tours?
not Dick Clark. Before that,
Alan Freed.
Alan Freed.
Alan Freed,
Yes.
and his radio station came to us in Liverpool from Luxembourg. And my friend Roy and I, who also loved country, loved the blues, loved movable music. And at 4:00, that's what we did on Sunday. 2 teenage boys listening to all these different acts that we couldn't hear in England. BBC wouldn't play anything. You know, it's very difficult. And also being a port, a lot of lads brought the records in. And they'd been home 3 days and they'd spent all the money and they were selling the records. And we could buy them. Yeah, great.
And T-Bone, for you, like, you know, you've spoken, we had you on with Elvis Costello and we talked about Look Up, how brilliant that is. But like, what actually working this closely with him back to back on these 2 records that are just absolutely remarkable, what did you learn to appreciate? Because for one thing, I can't believe how vocally you sound better than ever.
Well, I keep telling him at least they're in the right key. I've been sent songs in F demented. You know, that's just crazy. Yeah, and
are we covering him up?
He's found my key, and you know, I fitted right in there. What the music he sent me was no struggle. It was a country record anyway. I didn't want to struggle, and it was just worked a treat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it seems like for you, T-Bone, like you've spoken about literally a 60-year dream to do this. What does it mean to you?
Well,
I didn't know that.
well, I didn't know that either. But
You said it, but you didn't know.
no, I said that's it's been 60 years of listening to Ringo play. But no, I never thought once of doing a record with him or anything other than he came in and played on an Alpha Band record in the mid 70s, which I don't think you even remember.
No.
But I remember it very well. And so it was but I've been living in this dream for 60 years that I feel like was initiated on the Ed Sullivan Show in February of 1964. I mean, it was actually initiated when I first heard Jerry Lee Lewis in 1957 sing a whole lot of shaking going on. And I remember rolling around on the floor laughing and thinking, this is what I want to do with my life. And then by 1960, Jerry Lee was disgraced. Chuck Berry was in jail. Buddy Holly was dead. Eddie Cochran was dead. Rock and roll got dismantled. Elvis Presley was in the army in Germany, you know. And so I thought, oh, well, this isn't going to be a life after all. Rock and roll is too dangerous. And then in 1964, the Beatles happened, and it opened up a vista that I've since lived in my whole life, you know, in that dream of playing rock and roll.
Yeah.
It's funny because it affected all of us.
Yeah.
But you got to live in that world.
I've been incredibly lucky for somebody of medium talent to be able to survive for 60 years in show business. You know?
Yeah.
Well, you're no medium talent. But you did tell us before that you've always tried to be the worst player in your bands.
Well, I feel like if you're not,
I think he succeeds.
That's why I love him.
I feel like if you're not the worst player in the band, then I'm in trouble. You know.
In addition to being the best player in the band that you're in, the thing that one of the first time I met you, which was 38 years ago in a New York hotel when you were about to go on the first.
It was a Tuesday.
It was a Tuesday.
8:05.
And you looked older then. So but I remember one thing you told me is every time I stopped drumming in my life, it's the only time I went off the path.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of don't go where the road don't go.
Yeah.
That as long
There's
as
more than a song.
yeah, as long as you keep the beat, you keep
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the path.
Yeah. And, you know, with the band you're talking about, you know, I sat in with them a few times, but then Brian called and, you know, I joined right away, but I had to wait 2 days so that Rory could get a drummer. And when we got back to Liverpool, all the fans said, "You're not leaving Rory." And yeah, I'm leaving Rory. And, you know, because we didn't know where it was going to go. I just knew I loved that front line and I wanted to play with it. And I got to play with it a couple of nights, but then I got to play with them every night, you know.
We got to go to the listening party for Long, Long Road. And for people who don't know what a listening party is, you literally go in a room and listen to the record.
Yeah.
Then you guys came out and talked about it with
With
Jeff
Jeff
Bridges.
Bridges.
Yeah, which
Yeah,
is great.
Yeah, it's hard to talk when Jeff's in the room. Only kidding, Jeff.
But that was so much fun. But
Yeah.
listening to the record was so much fun.
Yeah.
And it goes down easy, this record, doesn't it? It's a beautiful listen.
Great.
And I wanted to know what you guys thought about why this one is special. You've made so many albums. What's special to you guys about Long, Long Road?
Well, for me, it's the follow-on from Look Up.
Which is great
and
too.
us working together.
Yeah.
So we knew each other a little better now. And the changes that T-Bone put in, and one crazy instrument, it just made it for me, it steps up.
Yes.
You know, not that the other one's down. It's just that this steps up in a musical way.
Uh-huh.
And I loved it. And the songs are great.
Well, speaking of, the songs are not only great, you went back to revisit something you do periodically. You revisited a song I loved, but talk about a step up. I honestly, when I listen to Choose Love, I really think production-wise, it's as close as I get to the magic of a George Martin production, but it's more elegant and more like a almost classical arranger.
When you're leaving?
Well, I'll leave it at that, you know.
Well, no,
The thing was, though, you have to tell the story because you asked for that, for the obloxes, whatever they're called.
Yeah. Well, we were doing it for another project. But I do have to say George Martin is the greatest record producer of all times, you know. So if it's better than that, did you say that? I mean, say it again.
Yes. You're taller than George Martin. That's what I meant. Even taller.
Yeah.
No, it's an absolutely beautiful arrangement of a song, and it somehow just hits the mood of 2026. I feel like.
Yeah,
Or
well,
good
I
reminder
think
to
so
choose
too,
love.
and it's all brand new. You know, we didn't use any of the tracks from the original, and we did it all again and in a country fashion for this thing he had going for him, and it didn't work, but it worked for the album, you know, and it worked for me. No matter what you choose love. So it fitted right in, and he did a great job.
It is your brand. When did it become your brand?
Well,
Was there a point in your
mean
life?
This brand?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Peace and Love.
Peace and Love.
Which couldn't be, first of all,
I think it
the most
came
beautiful.
with all of us in the middle 60s.
India?
Thank you to the guys in San Francisco in that neighborhood.
Yes.
And they changed the world. You know, that was so great. The dress code started to change,
Uh-huh.
and we all went with it. And the music started to change. And, you know, it was a big, and in England, it was like, all these designers came out. And, you know, it was different. We finally, I felt, England had finally got over the war. You know, we were lads and we were doing what we did.
Yeah, I think all of that was a response to the atom bomb. You know, I think bebop, abstract expressionism, you know, to look at a Jackson Pollock painting is to like be inside a nuclear explosion as all the molecules fly apart.
Right.
And I think, you know, Dylan's song, "The Times They Are Changing."
Right.
It was all about we can't live this way. We can't live under the constant threat of nuclear annihilation. And I think the burst of energy that was Jerry Lee Lewis and the burst of energy that was the Beatles and all the music that came out of England then, excuse me, was a response to that. So Monk, Thelonious Monk, was
Yeah.
taking
remember
was
these
taking it all apart and putting it back together in a better way. And I think that's what we artists have to do now. We have to imagine a better future, and I think that's what this is. You know, let's have a better future.
Yeah, still relevant.
It's absolutely.
But, you know, she's gone. A lot of the tracks on the country album are very countryish. And,
Depressing.
well,
They sing about sad things.
I've been depressed. They're not depressed.
No.
But Ringo,
But they do have, like, you know, this is life, it's miserable.
yeah, it was.
Then she came back and things are better. And every time people said, well, what is it about country music? Well, I loved it because the wife's left, the dog's dead, or we don't have enough money for the jukebox. That was it. That was
All equal.
all you needed to know about
That's
country
funny.
music.
But you did a country record. Like, one thing that when I've retraced your career
Yeah.
at different times, it's amazing the things you did ahead of the curve. Like, you in 1 year, I think it was, you did Sentimental Journey, where you
Yeah.
predicted like every rock and roller who would eventually, you know, do the standards.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you did a country record. Did Pete Drake just sort of drag
Pete
you
Drake.
across the water?
Well, no, see, that's another thing that you make the right moves. When I was playing on George's album, and George didn't tell me anything. He'd asked Pete Drake to fly in, come and play on his record. And at that moment when Pete landed, George's car had broke or something. So I said, well, take my car. And the driver took my car to pick him up. And he comes in, he says, hey, horse. And he used to call us horse. And he says, yeah, I see you like country music. I said, yeah. I said, well, he said, well, you got all those cassettes in your car. And then we played, we were doing a bit of work for George. Then we had a break, and he said, you should come to Nashville, make a record. And I'm thinking, like, you know, what's the last year been? Well, about a month in Nashville, 6 weeks, you know. I don't think so. And I said that to him, you know, months in Nashville? He said, months? He said, Nashville Skyline, talking about Bob, took 2 days. And I said, oh, that sounds okay. So I flew to Nashville. And guess what? Day one, we picked 5 songs, we recorded 5 songs, and we finished 5 songs. The next day, we picked 5 songs in the morning. The band went in and played them. I sang them. We finished them. It took 2 days. Far out. Far out.
And it stands the
But-
test of time.
I must have known you guys were coming because I'm in the car with Barbara in her car last night. She's driving. She has her music on, and Book Who's the Blues came on. And I thought, my God, this is great. Because I haven't played it in a while, you know. I've been busy with this one. And yeah.
You went to
just
Nashville
happened.
before you went to Nashville, you know.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have
That was
brought
72, I think.
7, yes. And you have also brought in, I will say, a big contribution. Some of the artists who help fill out this record, I guess they're all honorary Texans. You talk about these amazing artists, like Billy Strings, for one, is like
Yeah, Billy was
star in
great.
his own right.
And he said, yeah, I mean, I've talked to T-Bone about that. It was incredibly great of all the people who turned up for me, who joined us in, you know, probably he knew them all, I don't know, but they still came out for Ringo's record. And, you know, I'm ever grateful for that. It was beautiful.
Well, not only are you a great musician and been part of the greatest group in history, but you've influenced me in another way because you were the funny one. And
Yeah.
so that comedy got in. I was attracted to you the most because you were the funny one.
Not the drumming or the singing.
I loved all of that.
Yeah, I'm only kidding.
And I love your brothers there.
Yeah.
All beautiful. But can you talk about the humor?
Well, the humor comes because I come from the city.
Yeah.
And it's like a low end of the city. And it's just part of being from Liverpool that if somebody gives you a line, you just shoot it back.
Yes.
There's some answer to it.
I mean, they were
It's
you
just
were all
part
witty.
Part of all my family,
Yeah.
the neighbors, you know, kids in the pub. it was just part of being Liverpool. And we saw Paul 2 weeks ago playing, and he was like in a theatre. Can you dig that?
Yeah.
And all the downstairs was standing. But anyway, so someone had shouted at him, and he'd shout back.
Yeah.
And I love that part of him, because I don't think he gets that part in the arenas. I've seen him in the arenas, I've played arenas, but it was just great. And I was telling him the other night we were out that it was so great. It was just so great. The band was great. He was on, and he was on because you were there right in front.
Yeah.
It just worked a treat. But I think the humor comes from Liverpool. And sometimes it can hurt, but most time it's joy.
It's so beautiful. I love it.
That was one of the things about the Beatles is the press would come at them.
Oh,
yeah.
In New
they
York.
would come right back to them.
Well, that famous line, "How did you find America?"
Yeah, turn left at Greenland.
Yes. Was that preloaded in his mind?
No.
Was that just came?
No,
I mean, that's crazy.
We found
funny.
out later when we got the train from New York to Washington. All the press were on the train. We were just all hanging out, and several of them said, "Oh man, it was great, that interview, the press conference." He said, "We get so tired of people coming." They actually said from England, "Oh, it's very nice to be here." We were like, "Well, it got to that." And that's just, we were all like that, John.
So it's being
like
good
that.
at improvisation.
It's improvisation,
Yeah, that's right.
But that's fantastic. And I'm sure it's musical.
Well, his drumming is
Yes.
completely improvised.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
It was, but it was great because, we had some good writers in the band.
Pretty good,
And
yeah.
that was like how it came out. It turned out, what are we doing? And on that last, 6-year documentary,
Yeah.
it was only 8 hours, I believe. Peter Jackson did.
Yeah.
It was so great. Because
Fantastic.
there's a point in it where we're doing Get Back and the singing, and I used to just tap while I was singing, getting to know it themselves. Then they get a bit of rhythm going, and I did that. And then, so I said, when did I go to, that sort of rock march? And I don't know how I got to it. So I said, see if you can find any footage. So we searched, the 56 hours of unused film we found from another director. And he's got this footage, and I'm going, no, get back. Then I'm going, get back. Doing pause. And then they don't have where I go. So, but I don't know where that came from.
Right.
Well,
I
you
said,
felt loose enough to come up with
you
it.
could do that in that band.
Right.
If you made a shitty move, that you'd be told. But if it was a good move, hey,
How about Come Together? Was that another one of those things?
John was sitting in the corner. We went in a studio in Soho. We wanted to break from the huge capital EMI. And he's going, he's like riffing with this sort of open, and he's going, and I go, out of the blue. I didn't know where it came from. And he goes, he was really happy with that.
Yeah.
Both those cats had the most incredible rhythm, first of all. John Lennon's maybe the best rhythm guitar player that ever lived.
Yeah. Well, John was wild. And, he'd throw bits in. Just wherever he felt, it was so beautiful, Yeah. Paul's the worker, he was the worker. He held us all together.
Yeah.
And George would find the right notes every time.
Yeah.
So it was just a great band. What can I say?
Great collaboration.
Yeah, I think we can
That's
agree
the
on that.
understatement of the century, maybe?
I do remember I happened to be with you right before the movie came out, and you said something to me. He goes, "You're going to love it." And he goes, "It's what I've always told you. There was always love in that band." Because I had only seen the earlier movie, and when we watched it, I remember you talk about the Get Back sequence. We watched that and discussed that like it was religious, like it was the greatest story ever told. Because it's, as a non musical genius. It's amazing to watch.
But
it.
we're both writers, and just to see the act of creation.
Yeah,
To see
yeah.
Paul will that song into being because he had to
Yeah.
was an amazing thing to watch.
Yeah.
But what you just described with coming up with the beats of certain songs that you had no idea where
no
they came
plan.
from, that's just
Yeah.
And they weren't imitated.
No.
They were completely original.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
I mean, just great. We're getting a signal that we have to go. But was there anything else you wanted to ask about the record before we go?
Well, first of all,
This record.
This record lets everybody get it.
Long, long road.
It's a great album.
and
It's
a great
really
cover.
fun.
I like.
Well, you have to thank T-Bone for that because he found this house that, I don't know where he found it. And he said, we're going to do the photos there. So I got up in the morning and decided this is what I'll wear.
Yeah.
And you're the first two guys to interview us and not talk about the shares.
Did you see?
Oh, Ringo got a new record. Great
Yeah.
shirt. I'm like,
about the shirt.
yeah. But that shirt, while I'm doing that, was on
Oh,
this photo
aha!
all those years ago.
Same shirt.
Same shirt.
Wait,
yeah.
show the people.
What people?
And it still fits.
Well, have a look for Christ's sake.
That's very nice.
And,
But there's not a lot of people who can wear a shirt, 60 years later, right?
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Well, I just want to also before we go,
Just
we'll
to
wrap
let
up.
you know, my pepper suit still fits.
That's fantastic.
Before we wrap up, I want to say thank you for finding a Carl Perkins song I never heard.
Yes.
Me
This is-
neither.
I didn't know there was one of those. How
Yeah.
great is I
don't see me in your eyes anymore.
What a country
how
title.
beautiful. That's how
Yeah.
Carl was.
Yeah.
And he found it and he calls me and said, I found this Carl Perkins. I have never heard it before. I didn't know anything about it. I said, what is it? I've never heard of it either. And came out of the blue. Who gave it to you?
Dennis Crouch, the bass player, sent it to me, and as soon as I heard it, I thought that sounds exactly
Yeah.
like Ringo.
Wait, say that line again. I want everyone to hear it.
Which one?
I don't see myself in your
Yeah.
I
I don't see me in your eyes anymore.
beautiful.
It's just
But
Yeah.
things will get better through the tune, he says. And now I can see me in your eyes.
Great.
Oh, they're back in love.
Well, just to finish, because we have to wrap up, I want to tell you that one of the things that's amazing to me is the internet. The thing I get back sent to me the most is a quote about you, which is the nicest thing to get because it was, I guess, in your bio many years ago. But every time you play, I get journalists who don't have an interview, they quote it. So I want to say, it said, ultimately, what's most impressive about Ringo isn't who he's been, but rather who he is. The man's great heart, soul, wit, and wisdom. So I want to thank you for all of those qualities and for finding time to share, to come to Naked Lunch at long last. It's been a long, long road.
Yeah.
We'll have food for you next time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
We love you. Thank
the
you.
long road has to do with my life, and I was looking at myself and started in Liverpool, and the twists and turns, and some, getting to New York, yeah, great. Getting in the bank, great. Getting a lot of great stuff, and then there was, quite a few left turns, and I haven't been in the left turn for 30 odd years now, and there's a lot of right turns, and that's how this happened. It was a right move.
And you're still on the road, and people can see you on the road.
Yeah, I know, I'm still on the road, and all they talk about is the jumping jacks. I'm still doing jumping jacks.
That's fantastic. Yeah, a lot of people can. Thank you.
Okay, listen, thank you, boys. It's been really
We love
cool.
you, and I speak for everybody.
And let's
We
give
speak for the world.
T-Bone a round of applause.
T-Bone! He's good too.
From an upcoming episode, here's Peter Frampton and his son Julian Frampton sharing some great Ringo stories.
Peter, I know your history with him. I remember when you did Laughable. I remember talking to him about that. But we were so thrilled to finally have Ringo on our podcast, and it's like I wondered for you, what is your relationship with Ringo meant to you? Because it's a long one.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like I'm playing my own trumpet loudly here, but this is the truth. I mean, I met Ringo on the All Things Must Pass sessions. Actually, right before that, on the Doris Troy album. Ain't That Cute was the first track I played on.
She was a
that
great
one.
American soul singer, I believe, who then George had produced. And yes, great. She did Just One
Yes.
Look, the original, I think.
And I was there. So George said, "Would you play on the track?" I said, "Now?" So yeah, well, Steve Stills is downstairs. I said, "Oh, well, okay." Um, so it was wild. So anyway, and I played on most of Doris's record. After that, George asked me back, and so then he called me to play on All Things Must Pass, and Ringo was on that too. So, but then I was living quite near where Ringo was in Hampstead Heath in London, and so we used to hang out. This was humble pie time, and so yeah, I would go around there and play his drums, and we'd jam and stuff like that. So yeah, I've known him a long, long time, and then. I just remember being backstage at the Forum the first time I played the Forum, and I'm like a deer in headlights with what's going on. My career's just blown up incredibly well. And Ringo and Keith Moon are sitting backstage with me before the show, and I'm just going, wow, this is all incredible. And I just said to Ringo, I said, what happens next? Because I said, this is the biggest thing that's ever happened to me. And he said, and I just remember he said, every career is different, Pete. So he was no help at all.
I thought it was going to say, well, in my experience, you break up.
Well, the great irony being there is a novel long lost, but if you can find it, I recommend it, called Paperback Writer, that came out in the 70s, I think. And in the book, the Beatles reunite in the 70s, and it doesn't go well, and they ended up opening for Peter Frampton. That is, I recommend that book. But in reality, I remember a few years after I moved here, Ringo invited me to one of the All-Star Band shows. Peter Frampton had to fill in everything on guitar in a band with, I believe, Jack Bruce. And I remember thinking it was one of the greatest tours I've ever seen, because it was like you and Jack Bruce. It was like Cream and Humble Pie and Peter Frampton all happening at once. It was fantastic.
Yeah, well, I had not, I had met Jack Bruce before, but I had not played with him, and I had no idea his opinion of me as a player either. So, I heard some things about Jack, that he could be a little tough, and I needn't have worried, because we hit it off. I mean, very close on that tour. He was just a super, super guy. And so we almost formed a band together after that tour with Gary Brooker, me and Jack. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. We went to Gary Brooker's house after that and jammed.
That would be Procol Cream Pie or something like that.
You heard it here first on Naked Lunch.
Yeah. But anyway, so it never really came to fruition, but it was just so cool to be in this band with Ringo and all these great players.
Last question about Ringo. I think he's the greatest. We told him he's the greatest. What do you love about him as a musician, as a player?
Me, I've always loved the way he plays. And, I mean, you couldn't put another drummer on any Beatles song and it sound right. It's just, the Beatles is him, he's a phenomenal player, has his own complete style. And it's just one of those, he's one of a kind. He's the best.
And Matt, Ringo and the All-Star Band tour in '96 was actually a big moment for me. I'm just going to throw myself in here too, because That was in '96, and I called my dad right before that and said, because one of my best friends was playing drums, so I said, I want to play drums. He went, oh, okay. All right. And he talked to Ringo, and I walked into the green room, and Ringo's sitting on the other side of the green room on a bright red CB drums starter kit, and he stood up and he handed me the sticks and said, these are yours. So most people say the Beatles got them into music. A Beatle got me into music. I'm very grateful and forever grateful for that. I still have the kit in storage in Nashville somewhere.
Yeah, Jeff Jonas, the tech who put it all together for you. We need to thank Jeff too.
We do.
Julian,
so that was
how old were you?
Magic. I was 8.
Wow.
That's the greatest story. I'm so glad you jumped in.
I've got the pictures to prove it. You know,
yeah, it was very magical.
Behind Julian playing the drums.
As we celebrate Ringo's fab new country album, let's revisit T-Bone Burnett and Elvis Costello discussing Ringo's excellent 2025 album, Look Up.
I've recently heard an amazing new song by Ringo Starr, produced by T-Bone, that when we actually were in your studio, I think you played us your demo version for some of the material that is going to be on this new Ringo record. But can you just tell people a little bit about what this album means to you? Because I know it's incredibly exciting to us.
Well, I want to say that the Beatles were the first rock and roll band. You know, before the Beatles, all rock and roll was a lead singer with sidemen: Elvis Presley, Eddie Cochran, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, all of them. There was always one front man and with sidemen. The Beatles were 4 front men. They were 4 artists in their own right. And it was the first version. It was the first time that happened. It's also why it could only happen for so long, because each one of those artists, as he grew, began going in a different direction. You know, right now on streaming, the 2 most streamed Beatles songs are Something and Here Comes the Sun, 2 George Harrison songs. And he was the youngest. He was the dark horse. He was the one that couldn't get his songs on the albums, you know. But he emerged as, in some ways, the one who was able to do the most broadly received songs. So I've always looked at, since I was a kid, as I think we were talking earlier, I've never been interested in mass culture with the exception of the Beatles. I've always been interested in things that were off the beaten path, which is why, you know, when we were talking earlier about the landscape music, you know, that's how I got into all of that, into the idea of music can create place. You know, the Beatles created a place a completely mysterious place to me. Somehow those 4 guys getting together. But Ringo was even more in the background than George Harrison somehow. Yet I've always loved his approach to the way he sang Honey Don't. I've always loved his voice. He's got the 2 most important things about singing are tone and diction. Tone is the most important. Diction is the second. Ginsberg always talked about Dylan's diction, how he articulated every syllable. Ringo's like that. He has extraordinary diction, so he's a great, great storyteller. So when he asked me to write a song for him, I began by, Ringo Starr sounds like the sheriff of Dodge City, you know, that name. And I knew that we all wanted to be cowboys when we were kids, of that generation. So I wrote him a Gene Autry song, basically called "Come Back When You Go Away," and then he asked me to write another song. But for me, it's getting to work with Ringo like this and getting to write for him and getting to write right into his voice, because I knew him so well through his music. I knew his music so well that I was able to conjure him, so to speak. and to be able to get to do that was was sort of the culmination of a 60-year dream I've been living all this time that I wouldn't have been living were it not for the Beatles.
There's a DVD that I know exists, which is a compilation of public domain newsreels of the Beatles. It has no original music in it. And it was this thing that I stumbled on. And among the things that are the thing that gives it value is it's a very, very poignant compilation because it's not done with the same editorial eye as, say, 8 Days a Week or something like that with talking heads. There are a few talking heads in it. But the main thing is the juxtaposition of watching a group of young men be excited, be thrilled, be successful, then to be exhausted and gradually have the life drained out of them. And the most telling thing of all is the demeanor of the Beatles at the press conference prior to Candlestick Park. And they're now unshaven. They're not presenting themselves as being, the mop tops at all. And Lennon says a bunch, but it's actually Paul says a couple of things that are really unexpected in it. If you have to, he answers some of the questions very irreverently. They have no patience for the idiotic questions that they're being asked. But it's George that looks like he wants to kill somebody. I mean, it's like he has just absolutely had it with this thing, He doesn't say anything. He just stares. And, of course, you think about how very young they still were when that occurred. He was... he'd had a little bit of that time, the youthful time taken from him. And I guess they didn't get it back until they got back into the studio and started to be able to have the freedom to make music without any of that, expectation. It wasn't like they were playing music and being heard half the time. They weren't being heard. They were being screamed at, So that must have been very upsetting after a while. It's easy to think that you'd like that kind of excitement, but maybe not. But if it were actually you on the stage trying to do your best, But I love this record. I'm very fortunate to have heard the Ringo record all the way through. Henry asked me if I would write the liner for Ringo's record, and I thought, well, what a great assignment to get to write the liner notes for one of the Beatles record, particularly something this. So open-hearted as this is not like, Then I said, when he sent it to me, I was on a train from Boston to New York, and I was listening to it, and I was texting him at the same time going, oh my God, the drum fill at the top of this track, who's that singing with him on that? This is fucking fantastic. And so when I went back to sit down to write the note, I thought I could write a well-crafted, sensible thing. But I went back and I copied all my messages and wrote it out like a script of what I'd said, because that was honestly my reaction to hearing it for the first time, was the glorious surprise of hearing him, invigorated by the openness of the songs, the beautiful way they were played, how much he had found his voice in this moment, the way he played the drums on every track. And there was no... like some professional sleeve note writers of the past, they would have to praise the record whether it was good or not. But in this case, it was nothing but the truth, the whole truth. So that's great.
And next week, Phil and David are all in now because our beloved Naked Lunch house band Dog Starr, Brett Domrose, Rob Mailhouse, and Keanu Reeves are back for seconds.
I just want to say, I find I'm very blessed to like what I like. I like baseball, I like rock and roll, music in general. And I love Dog Starr. From the first time I met you guys, I just said, it's great. There's a great energy, but you've really become a really great band, which I think is just
really
a remarkable thing 20 years later. So that's why
That means a lot coming from you.
I bought this for my dog in Florida this weekend, but I wanted to present you with voted top dog to Dog Starr.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to bring it back to my Cavapoo.
And now I can reveal that David was that girl in the barbed wire.
Oh, let's see those scars. I know exactly where they are. No, really, man. Thank you for the time that you spent to listen and the time you spend with us. And I can say now, over the years. And so I know that whenever we get a chance to meet you, hear from you, to spend time with you. It means a lot to us. And so, chapeau.
And your body of work over the years
let
is
the tape not have run out.
so much.
it's
Because Phil was about to fire me. You might have just saved me on the.
I remember always reading Rolling Stone and liking your articles the best.
He's
and
a legend.
gravitating towards this, and that's when I reached out to you and you actually responded. I was like, whoa.
On Tinder.
And you just can't say anything nice anymore, can you?
That's nice. What? How?
It was nice.
Yeah.
Naked Lunch is a podcast by Phil Rosenthal and David Wild. Theme song and music by Brad Paisley. Produced by Will Sterling and Ryan Tillotson. With video editing by Daniel Ferreira. And motion graphics by Ali Ahmed. Executive produced by Phil Rosenthal, David Wild, and our consulting journalist is Pamela Chellan. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a friend. But if you can't take my word for it, take Phil's.
And don't forget to leave a good rating and review. We like 5 stars,
Thanks for listening to Naked Lunch, a Lucky Bastards production.